One of the key provisions of the PATRIOT Act is about to expire, and problematic Section 215 that has warrantlessly hoovered up billions of call details on many innocent Americans is pretty much the poster child of all that's gone wrong with the surveillance state. The president has been at odds with his attorney general, which is unsurprising given that the president's campaign was erroneously spied upon by the architect of the rights-thwarting NSA program. That's right. In 1992, Bill Barr sat with his deputy Robert Mueller on his lap and hammered out a crafty program for the DEA that allowed them to access lots of information on bad guys undetected. And then that thing was beefed up and juiced post 9/11 to become the problematic NSA metadata suck vessel that was finally exposed by Edward Snowden in 2013. Barr doesn't want to hurt his baby, and he's recommending a clean extension of 215 and other provisions. But the president is still furious the FBI peed in his punch bowl by lying, then spying on Carter Page, which launched the Mueller probe and paved the path for impeachment. It does not matter that these plans have saintly intentions or if a specific instance or 17 allowed the system to fail. If the whole thing can be abused this easily, well, maybe the system has to go. No one has the nards to pull the plug on these unconstitutional freedom snuffers, and only a few brave liberty defenders have a plan to neuter the goose. Rand Paul has been whispering in the president's ear, getting him into a lather about the stunning ease and breadth of abuse that almost brought down his administration. And Rand's bill would specifically end bulk data collection under Section 215, which would make another bill, Barr, quit with its passage. The time is now, and if every presidential hopeful doesn't immediately get on board with serious reforms, then none of them deserve the job at all. Where you at, Bernie? And that's the memo. Section 215 and two other surveillance provisions set to expire on the Ides of March unless Congress reauthorizes them. So will our lawmakers let them lapse, or will the spying continue? Join me to discuss tonight. It's Cato Institute Senior Fellow in Technology and Privacy. This is really his wheelhouse. It's Julian Sanchez. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So what do you see as being, the most problematic and persistent aspect of this legislation, and what can actually be done about it?
Well, so, there seems at this point to be a pretty broad agreement that the call records component of 215 should just be allowed to die. This is the successor to the bulk collection program Ed Snowden revealed. And we knew it was massively invasive. They weren't quite willing to kill it at the time, so they watered it down and neutered it a little bit. But we know now that this is, despite nominally not being bulk anymore, this is a program where they've collected 400 to 500 million records a year, even though there are only about 11 orders last year. We know that it was massively expensive. It cost about $100 million over 4 years. And that they got out of that exactly 2 unique leads, at least one of which was a complete dead end. This is a program that had a number of compliance issues where they were improperly and unlawfully collecting information they weren't entitled to. Repeatedly, the NSA basically found it so problematic and so useless that they have voluntarily shut it down.
But even with that, even with the voluntary shutdown, there are still abuses.
Yeah, and I mean, they're still holding a lot of data there. Part of the problem is they sort of suck this information in, and there are procedures to purge data that is not foreign intelligence information, but usually the standard that's applied, and not just in this program, but across the board with FISA, is
go ahead.
You keep it until you've determined it's not foreign intelligence, which means it sits there until you're absolutely certain it couldn't possibly be foreign intelligence.
All right, and you have spoken about the part of this surveillance apparatus that was most easily abused, and that was the part that was used against Carter Page, because once he was identified as a target and the warrant application was rubber stamped, then they essentially had to gather all of that information, all of that sensitive banking information, and not just metadata. I mean, this really was spying on someone. Also getting information from people who knew him. I mean,
that's right.
So tell me about that.
So, this is a kind of big missing piece in the Horowitz report. We heard a lot about their sort of full content surveillance and that application process. But well before that would happen, they would have used these other authorities to get, again, telecommunications, internet, phone, and financial information about Page, certainly, but also about people in connection with him. And this is a case where, as the statute is written, the FISA court doesn't have an option as to whether to grant that. Once they've opened a counterterrorism investigation on a target, and they opened on Page before anyone had a whiff of the Steele dossier. They did that even almost before he was part of the Trump campaign. Everyone who is known to or in contact with him, their records are all automatically relevant to the investigation.
Isn't that incredible?
And the FISA court is required.
Think of why this is so insane. And never mind that it was a Republican presidential candidate and nominee. Anyone at this high level, if you got one person, that's all they needed was one person on the campaign to spy on, and anyone who spoke to him, they now have access to all those records. And you're telling me there's not something dreadfully wrong with that program?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. The standard now is if you've got suspicion, correct suspicion or incorrect suspicion about one person, everyone in their social network effectively becomes fair game as well.
Yeah.
And that seems, I think, just shockingly overbroad and unreasonable. We need to say not just that you're in contact with someone suspicious, but there's some additional reason to believe that there's justification for scrutinizing something as sensitive as the records of people's internet activity, the records of people's, who people are emailing and calling.
And that's why I say anyone who's running for president, you better sure as hell hope they put some brakes on these runaway trains. Because,
and even if you're not running for president.
Yes, absolutely. Well, like those of us civil libertarians who have been warning lawmakers and various administrations about this for years. Julian, you do great work at Cato. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight.
Thank you.